another video for y'all today.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video.
It's your boy,
Deep Art, and we are back with another video.
We got another video for y'all, another video for y'all today. And we got a few things we want to talk about in this video. It's just like, man, I'm tired. You know what I'm saying?
I'm tired, man, in this video, but in this podcast, we got a few things we're gonna talk about. I'm tired because it's like, I've been just been working, man. Like, working on some things. It's like, I just been working, bruh, and it's just like, when you like get to working, on a project, and it's just like, you're working a project, you're utilizing all of the different sorts of like factors and components that go into that project, and it's just like you pulling from here, and it's just like each outlet that you get into is sort of repositioning, repositioning the just the angle of, or the angle of your craft, right, and your structure, right? It's repositioning the angle of your craft, and it's just like, it's as it's repositioning the angle of your craft. Now it's like you're able to sort of do other things and hit other points, and it's just like, what are the cause and effects, and like what are the ripple effects of just some of the outlets that you sort of indulge in, or even the functions that you sort of like indulge in, that re-angle or reposition your craft or reposition your body to a point to where you're able to better angle yourself, or in your craft, which allow you to hit points, at a certain angle, at a certain position, right, in order for you to affect that craft in a specific way, right? And then, because there's a specific way you want to, hit that craft, right? And then, like, if you can hit that craft, right, or the next outlet in the specific way that you want to hit that craft, then it's like, okay, cool. Like, now I can have the sort of effect, or, the craft can have the sort of effect that it's kind of intended to have, right? Because it's coming from a different angle, right? It's been, the craft itself, or just the positioning, the trajectory of the shot is coming from a perspective or an angle or a position that is allowing it to sort of, strike more pinpoint accurately in the way that, you're trying to, accurately hit with it, right? And that's kind of the key thing, important thing that we're trying to do, and we're trying to focus on doing, with our craft and with our sort of implementation. And we can do that, then we can sort of bring about the effect that we want to be able to bring about. We can create the processes, or sort of like utilize, or just execute through the functions of the processes that we're trying to execute through, and we can create training regimes or finalize regimes in the methods or ways that we want to be able to finalize them. That way, we can create the technical systems that we need to create in order to keep the systems going, right? Keep the systems functioning, right, as intended. So that's kind of, the details and the importance that we're trying to really get in. And it's been a process because we've been utilizing, different sort of procedures or adjustments, concepts, that sort of tackle that, like transitions. The transitions was, one of the things we looked at, and which is like cooldowns, right? Being able to cool down from the implementations, and being able to transition into the next sort of outlet with visuals and observation. And it's just like, how do you create that observation, right? And how do you create those visuals that allow you to be able to make that transition a thing, and lead you into your next outlet? And it's like, if you can just sort of do that, then, you'll be better suited, in order to like engage and indulge in that next outlet, right? Work out, train, do what you do, work, and then cool down and transition, or visuals. And then as you cool down, transition and transition with visuals, you led into the next outlet, right? You get led into the next outlet, right? And then you can indulge and, you get led into the next outlet with proper angling and better adjustment, in order to tackle key points in that outlet that you intend to tackle in the specific sort of way, or from the specific sort of position and and from the specific trajectory that you want to be able to like hit from, right? And if you can hit from that trajectory and that position, you can better sort of, have the effect that you want to have, or more efficient and sort of convenient or profound effect that you want to have, which can then lead you to the next sort of things that you want to do because of just the trajectory, and of how you hit those key points, right? And the key points that you were hitting, which leads you to your next function or outlet, right? And then, the next thing we talked about was pace. Pace was the other thing we talked about, and just, other than transitions, like changing the pace, which might be a part of transitions as well, like, in terms of implementation, because pace can really just change and dictate just the nature of just the execution or even the thinking of problems that, that you have, right? And just how you conceptualize things, period. Observation being another thing, it's just your outlook and how you perceive, your way of thinking about things. And your observation can have a majority, like, monster effect in terms of just your outlook in terms of what you're doing. It's outlook, it's perspective, you know what I'm saying? And pace is one of those other things that can really dictate and have a major difference and effect on that as well, right? Pace, and by changing the pace, by changing the pace of certain things, that can sort of, that can lead you to a better transitioning in terms of an outlet, right? Just by changing the pace. Some things are done time and attention. Some things are better done in a progressive state of training. For instance, like art. Art is a more congregative sort of a cultural thing, right? Therefore, technically, I mean, it can, if done right, be executed in a more progressive sort of way, in terms of a congregative environment with cultural food, or just cooked food, dishes, music, visuals, melodies, congregation of people talk, what I'm saying? All that sort of thing, right? Cartoon stories, all these things are things that can, incense, smells, all of these things can sort of like insinuate themselves in the space of art, or, in the sort of environment of art. So all these things can insert themselves in the process of creating art, because they're all congregative, cultural inclusive feels. And all of these things, have an effect and shape the nature of just the art that's created. It all has an impact on it, because that's what art is. It's really just all these things together, in harmony. So understanding that, outlook on what art is, it's like, okay, that's what we're looking for, That's what we're looking for, right? Is to get to a sort of setting like that, and just being able to draw in it, right? The next thing is just being able to transition that art and that concept of art to other artistic things, because that's the nature, because they're going to involve that, right? Anything that is, in the form of art is going to sort of involve that, right? Because that's what it is. It's art at the end of the day. So, sometimes it might be a lot. Sometimes it might not be much, right? It might just be a little, just a little bit of just some sort of melodies that are there, in the back, and that sort of thing. And that's just the way it is, right? But at the same time, it's all art, it's all culture. It's all cultural at the end of the day. Because that's just being exercised, right? Or expressed. So, that's the important thing to know. Culture is being exercised, and it's just the process of that, exercising that, right? And it's just the transitioning, to get to that, right? And, afterwards, it's just like, okay, so, how does, other aspects of business sort of, how do they sort of like insinuate, or rather, how do they insinuate, or rather, how do they how do they sort of insert themselves into into this process, right? Like, other things like business, and this is just another transition, and it's just sometimes, if you were to include certain skills like writing training regimes, and training implementation and studying, and the education and this sort of aspect of it is like, these are kind of the spaces that you're getting into, you know what I'm saying? And this is like, the profession has to be able to sort of coincide with it, and sort of just be able to match it, right? And that's going to be one of the crucial things. And I think one of our other videos as well, we talked about how we talked about conscious implementation, just meaning the same thing we've always been talking. It was conscious rhythm is what it is. Conscious rhythm is what it is. Where you jump back and forth from in between a conscious implementation and just the natural shadow freestyle of your freestyling, right? Or just the natural rhythm and flow of what you're doing, right? And jumping back and forth between a state of conscious implementation where you're implementing sort of you're implementing conscious thinking, and sort of just implementations, and to go along with your natural base rhythm and flow of just the process of what you're doing. And it's jumping back and forth constantly between these two spaces that create a conscious rhythm that is synchronized
and put you in a,
that masterful state of just being able to, go back and forth. And, that's necessary as well. And your, ability to kind of jump back and forth between the conscious state of, certain, implementations, along with your base natural rhythm or process, or your natural process and rhythm, and, sort of freestyle shadow dribbling, is what I would call it, right? Or I would, parentheses, sort of like say, like as a metaphorically, in the, the process of just routine and just natural, routine or not your routine in terms of just like what you're doing, in terms of shadowing, right? And this is those conscious implementations, that really, sort of, synchronize themselves, with the process, and give you your system, and at the end of the day, that's sort of what we wanted to talk about, and and for the most part, and it's almost like a computer system that has regular programs that it runs. And then just being able to type in, you just being able to type in, information or certain things within the web bar, just type in things from within the web bar as you see fit or as needed, in order to generate the solutions you need to generate, as the computer is just running its basic and routine programs, it's basic routine systems and programs, and just you adding information or searching information on the web or typing into the web, or the web address, like, from time to time, with conscious implementations in terms of what you need, like weather, and other things, just, at a consistent state, jumping back and forth in between, conscious implementation, back to the, basic rhythmic processing of the system, and it's that basic jumping back and forth, between system and conscience, that make the system what it is. And, so just to repeat that one more time, right? And, that sort of thing. And it's, at the end of the day, that's what we really wanted to say, and for the sake of just your systems and your systems and processing, that sort of information, in terms of just like, what you do versus the process of you getting to your goals and where you're trying to get to. Being goal orientation versus just, the process, right? In terms of things you got to implement to get there. So that's kind of what we wanted to say. So without further ado, I think we made a good mark on this video right here. I'm going to make a part 2 to this right now, on this podcast. I'm not going to go any further on this joint. But peace, love, and go ahead and check out our next video, because we're about to make a part 2 to this on this channel right now. Let's get it.